Gold. There's only one thing I found better than gold, though. Fever. Yes. And that's the guy that brings it to me.
The hope for the Klondike gold fever that we have. We paddled our brains out.
We are not doing that for the money. We're doing that for the fun.
I'm fascinated by the history here, and I've always wanted to take the whole trip to Dawson. This is super exciting for me.
In 1897, news of a rich gold discovery on the Klondike River in Canada's Yukon territory started the biggest gold rush in history. Thousands raced north to cross the coastal mountains and boat 900 kilometers down the Yukon River to the gold fields, hoping to strike it rich.
The origin for this race actually started 100 years ago with the first race to the Klondike. We wanted to closely reenact the actual race with 50 teams all the way here, and the first to Dawson would get the gold.
We are weighing in our packs, and hopefully they're going to be 50 pounds or a little more.
What we did with these teams to make them feel like gold miners or stampeders was to give them a list of gear taken directly from the required gear list that was required by the Northwest Mounted Police to cross the Chilkoot Summit into Canada in 1898.
Hammer, a shovel, 5 pounds of nails, hatchet, a compass, first aid kit, 5 pounds of beans, a pound of sugar, a pound of coffee, 5 pounds of dried fruit, a blanket.
I got water, got a first aid kit, got fuel, got a stove, got a cook kit. But you know the old adage, travel light, freeze at night.
Well, I think I'm about 1,000 pounds short of the original guys, but it's heavy enough.
We were thinking to take a bottle of champagne for the top, you know, because we are French. Huh?
Clean underwear and power bars will get you anywhere.
My teammate has to have clean underwear. We're sharing a tent.
The price is $5,000 US on gold.
We're doing it for personal experience and opportunity and a chance to relive past.
Just for the fun of it. I'm going for the gold.
I'm interested in writing children's stories. I have a couple of children's books, and I've got a new plot. So the race is going to give me all the experience and the torture and adventure that my heroine will eventually face.
My grandfather came, he was enlisted with the Northwest Mounted Policemen in 1899 in Calgary. I'm assuming that he either went overland through Edmonton or had come through here.
Well, I think the original guys thought they were going to get rich. And I know I'm not going to get rich. If you study history at all, you know that most of the gold seekers that went up over the pass never made a nickel up there anyway. Most of the claims were staked before they even left Seattle. They didn't know that. And the outfitters were very happy to sell them all the gear they needed to go up over the pass, and people were really eager to take their money in Skagway and Dyea and along the trail and along the river and to get them up to Dawson. Very few of these people ever realized a nickel's worth of money out of their adventure, but they had quite an adventure.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. For those of you who aren't familiar, Mr. Firth's grandfather or his great-grandfather hiked the Chilkoot Trail in the winter of 97 and 98 100 years ago. 3, 2, 1.
Well, hello there. Madam Dolly Bound is my name, and Mine and Miners is my game.
The Red Onion Saloon team is, of course, needed a little encouragement over the trail to make sure that they don't miss out on anything.
Go for the Klondike.
I think we forgot to train for something.
In 1897-98, the Stampeders, the majority of them came through the coastal passes at Dyea and Skagway, Alaska. 40,000 came over the Dyea Trail, also known as the Chilkoot Trail, a 33-mile-long ancient Indian trail which came to Lakes Lindeman and Lake Bennett.
This is the first half mile. Thank God.
You only got 32.5 miles to go.
It's just heavy. I have to get used to this next weight.
Right here is Weezer and Geezer.
The Chilkoot Trail, the hardships on that section are basically carrying a 50-pound pack up a nearly 4,000-foot pass in less than 16 miles. It's an incredible feat for anyone.
We'd been walking for almost 24 hours. We felt really tired, actually sick. And then we saw the lake, and we saw the canoes, and we saw people taking off the canoes, and the wind was freshening up, and we saw the clouds on the mountain. They say if the clouds are on the mountain, you got to go because the winds are picking up. We got in the canoe and started going. I don't know how we stayed awake. We got to Carcross about 1 p.m., and that means we'd been awake for about 30 hours at that point.
The original Stampeders had to build their own boats at Bennett, the start of the Yukon River system. The modern racers had canoes sent in by train beforehand.
Hey guys, yahoo! Here they come, right on, yeehaw!
This is the Carcross checkpoint. This is the first checkpoint on the water once they get their canoes in from Bennett. They have 27 miles to paddle in. As you can see, it's pretty windy conditions here, and the water's getting pretty rough. These teams are beat. They've been battered for hours on the water, and they're strong, and they're going to go for it. They're going to keep going.
We're going to scratch. I feel like $1 million. He feels like a half a penny, so we're going to scratch.
I feel I let my partner down here. Very competitive, and I feel he would have had a good shot at the top runners, if not winning this thing. I had trouble on the trail with my pack. I used a new pack, which wasn't too wise. And the adjustments, I never got them right, and I got my back out of whack now. Goldfield, Klondike, Dawson City. Not going to happen this road.
I'm just taping my foot up. Had a little blister on the trail. Why, you want to see it?
Well, the trick is moleskin with duct tape over it.
No, the duct tape is gone. I used that yesterday. It got me through, though. It's, you know, it's the handyman's miracle. You can patch your canoe with it, or you can patch your blisters.
Never go anywhere without duct tape.
We left at midnight and then paddled till 6:30. And then we were falling asleep in our boat. So we had, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours of shut-eye. And then we started, and it was getting windy, so it was good to get it over with.
I don't even know where my pan is there. I just need a rest about now. It's not easy. I think I'll do something different, though, a little easier, like marathoning or something. Forget this kind of race.
A relationship like this should stay happy and healthy. So if you're concerned about your cat's urinary tract health, make sure your cat's diet has just the right balance. Whiskas. Introducing new Whiskas Perfect Balance. Unlike some dry cat food brands, Perfect Balance helps maintain the optimum balance of acid and mineral content in your adult cat's urine. And that can help avoid painful urinary tract stones. Whiskas. Help keep your cat's urinary tract healthy with new Whiskas Perfect Balance. Whiskas.
Nutravite nutritional supplements include popular herbs such as echinacea and St. John's wort, high-quality natural ingredients. Nutravite products are scientifically tested to meet exacting standards. Nutravite, a perfect blend of science and nature.
Those who suffer from migraines understand its debilitating effects. Nutravite has a product to help. Migraway is a traditional herbal medicine to assist in the prevention and relief of migraine headaches. Migraway at pharmacies and health food stores.
Listen, I was at this restaurant. Woman sent this napkin to my table. Need to find her.
That's the new moisturizing lip silk by Max Factor. She's confident, sophisticated, likes strong colors, finds at Avalon, Prego.
Prego. That's it. That's where we were. Gee, that's a lot from just a napkin.
Well, I did have a little help.
Oh. So, do you like Italian?
We all know cold weather, icy winds and indoor heating can leave skin drier. So can we help stop winter from making our skin look drier than it should? Clinical tests on this intensive cream from Olay prove you can. Its continuous moisture formula works in 3 stages to give immediate relief from dryness, to continuously moisturize, and to help protect skin from dryness. And the name? Classic Cream from Oil of Olay. Proof we can help you look young.
Beautiful. It's a little on the windy side, but it gives one a great appreciation for what the original Stampeders went through.
Yeah, they made 30 trips over the pass where we only had to make 1. Piece of cake for us, not for them though.
Oh, it must have been tough for them. They didn't have all these nice warm clothes and Gore-Tex socks like I do, that's for sure.
Those guys must have been made of steel. Carrying boxes strapped to their backs with rope and going up the trail with a buddy or something like 40 times, carrying 2,000 pounds, 50 pounds a shot. It's quite an endeavor, you might say.
Well, they did it with vessels that were, handmade, I believe, and very crude craft from what I understand in the pictures I've seen, and I can't believe they did it, to tell you the truth. I could see why a lot of them died trying. We had those thoughts in our mind last night as we were camping. Our bodies were just so sore from paddling.
Well, we were going to start slow and taper off, and we're sticking with our game plan. We think we can handle that.
The wind she blows on Lake LaBarge, and then she blows some more. If you don't want to drown on the big lake, you best stay close to shore.
Adios. We had a boat capsize at Windy Arm. Everybody's okay. They're out of the water. They're either on shore. The rescue boat went to make sure.
We took off early this morning because we wanted to be in top 10, and we were in 12th position, so we thought, well, we'll push it to Whitehorse. And as we got out where Windy Arm comes in, we were adjusting some of the gear so that we could rest, and a wave hit us from the side and just rolled us over. We spent about a half hour in the water. We were trying to save the boat, but we didn't make any forward progress because the current was taking us out. So we decided to abandon the boat, just get ourselves to shore. I didn't think Smitty was going to get back to shore. I really didn't.
Seriously, that water is colder than hell. It didn't take long to zap the strength right out of it.
About 5 o'clock, we heard a yell and immediately knew it was an alarm type yell.
And they saw him. They came and got him, took him to shore.
We threw him a line and said, grab onto the line. We're going to pull you into shore. Hang on, you're going to make it. And he was just barely able to grab the line. He was so weakened and so hypothermic.
Couldn't even drink soup, she gave me a cup of soup. I just sat there and spilled it all out.
We got, the stove fired up with hot fluids and got their wet clothes off and dry clothes on and wrapped them in sleeping bags, put up my tents, laid body to body with them.
Yeah, we were dysfunctional, there's no doubt about that. And they took total control, and they saved us. There's no doubt about that. The wind came up harder, and so they're just sitting on the beach now, so they lost their chance to go through Windy Arm.
Man and woman team from Skagway that did the rescue, they probably lost, probably 9 positions, I'd imagine.
You never really know what the focus of anything you do in your life, I suppose, is, until you're presented with it. So if that was the whole reason to join this race, to be there at that time, then that's great. And I think it was. So we're happy with that.
Lake Bennett and Lakes Tagish and Marsh are about 110 miles long. The Yukon River, the third section of this journey, is about 450 miles long and begins near Whitehorse, Yukon Territory. In the old days, there was a series of very difficult rapids that the miners had to go through. Nowadays, that river has been dammed up at this point, and we had the racers stop there for a 12-hour layover before they continued on. It's a relatively safe journey from Whitehorse to Dawson, but it does take a long time. The river journey itself took some teams 3 days, it took other teams 8 days. The biggest difficulty on the river with this race was to stay awake and keep paddling at all times as fast as you could to get to the gold. We had teams that slept and ate and even went to the bathroom in their boats.
God, it's number 10, it's number 10, yeah! Woo!
What do you mean, finally? You realize how many people we smoked?
They've been telling us.
We left in 26th position. What position are we in now? Everybody got blisters. I wanted to trade a guy for his legs were shot and his feet were okay, so he was going to take my legs, I was going to take his feet. I don't know why we're staying awake as long as we are. We almost fell asleep about 2 hours ago out there. There's something about the rhythm of paddling. Just keep going. It's strange that people get tired in different sections, you know. We could hit the wall around the corner and just be unable to move for several hours and everybody goes by us. The competition among the middle of the pack is amazing. Like, none of us are going to be in the top 5. We all know that. But you come up to a boat and you say hi and they pick up their speed and it's a race. The race is on, right? Oh no, look, there's some guys coming, guys. Come on. Dwight, look. These guys are coming. Let's get in the boat. Come on. We're not eating. We haven't got time.
Oh, for the Klondike!
I'm sure some people are maintaining okay, and I'm sure others are finding out things about each other they maybe didn't want to know, you know? 6 days is nothing compared to the 1898 when they were together for months and months.
We've kind of developed a floating community, and that's kind of pulling us along. You know, we see everybody. We leapfrog, someone will camp.
We think that probably the miners did it this way too, that they probably had a little floating community going.
Fatigue will often play tricks on your mind. I do a quick personal assessment. I'll ask them a fairly easy question, like name the animals in the zoo. And if they can name 4 of them, I think that they're okay. And it's not in what they say, but it's in how they say it. Okay, this is an assessment of your well-being.
Oh, I see.
Okay, name me 4 animals in the zoo.
Like which zoo? It's been kind of strange watching him hallucinate. It's kind of funny. Oh, wow, I thought I saw a polar bear come out of the water. I thought it just came straight up out of the water, looked at us, and then went back down and swam away. And then there was the killer jellyfish. That was kind of scary. I thought just a huge jellyfish was going to take my paddle, and then I would have nothing to paddle with. All I remember is I saw this big black thing come out of the lake, just going, and I was like, ah! I took my paddle out and almost tipped the boat over, pulling his paddle out of the water. That scared me.
It's like huge chickeny, noodly waves rolling over my tongue. Hey, Lipton chicken noodle, please, please.
You would expect a cleanser to take your makeup off, but how about helping to reduce the signs of aging? Tests on Olo's first anti-aging cleanser prove it can be done. Its formula, containing beta-hydroxy complex, enables this advanced cleanser to help stimulate the skin's exfoliation process, helping to reduce the signs of aging. And the name? New Daily Renewal Cleanser from Oil of Olay, proof that cleansing can help reduce the signs of aging.
When spills are at their worst, Bounty's at its best, even on goopy messes. Look, using wet towels and equal amounts of spaghetti, see how Bounty holds together compared to the leading ordinary 9-inch brand? When spills are at their worst, Bounty's at its best.
Bounty, the quilty picker-upper. Bounty.
Ah, so that's what happened to my favorite orange shirt.
Yeah. It's been at my place since you moved out.
So you took my heart and you took my favorite shirt?
Oh, you survived.
I guess. But I still had to go out and buy this new one.
That's newer than this?
Yeah.
Even after 10 washes, his shirt on the left faded, but hers still looks great because she used all-color cheer.
So what would it take to get it back?
Your heart? Or your shirt?
All-color cheer. Hold on to the colors you love.
It feels like an invasion of noodleoids. And they're taking over my mouth. Lipton chicken noodle, please.
Oh, okay. How many hours? That would be 48 plus 8 is 56 hours, and we slept. I slept about 7. He slept about 10.
She has to get up and make breakfast, so I get to sleep.
I get up at 5:30, make him a huge breakfast so that he can paddle all day. Then I make him sandwiches and feed him during the day. And that keeps him going. I pre-make all the food, and so I had 4 meals that we made and froze and kept them in the freezer in Carmax.
I'm like a finely tuned engine. You've got to give me gas, or I don't go.
Oh, the Klondike.
Oh, for the Klondike!
Yeah!
Yeah, Dawson.
We're going to sleep in the boat, wake up, go through Five Figure Rapids, and land in Fort Selkirk hopefully tomorrow.
Oh, today started a long time ago. We haven't been out of the canoe since yesterday at 9 p.m. So that's more than 24 hours. Can move around in this boat, can pull out the sleeping bag, can eat, can, do anything in this boat now. Yeah, it's a big friend. I don't know if we got gold fever. We got personal adventure fever. Personal pride fever to get to Dawson before 11 days.
Our grandfather came over the Chilkoot Pass and down the Yukon River in the Klondike Gold Rush in 1898. And while we've heard all the stories and you've heard all the experiences, you really don't get a feel for exactly what they were doing, the spirit of the whole thing. Because we don't know the sense of rush that existed, and the sense of purpose that they had. Back then, everything they did, their whole life, their whole future depended upon what happened at the end of this river. And for us, when we finish it, we've got our whole life to do something else. The level of intensity just isn't there. We can look at the maps of the lakes, we can look at the maps of the rivers and know where we are, how far we've traveled. Those guys were coming down here blind. Anything that they didn't know was a terror. And so every corner in this river was a terror. Except the gold fever overruled all.
We paddled for 15 hours. We made it exactly as I said. And we slept in the boat. Cooked breakfast in the boat this morning.
For supper tonight, we had spaghetti, salad, red wine, Alpine bakery bread, butter, and brownies. Dessert. Not bad, eh? That'll keep me going, yeah.
Welcome to Dawson City. All right. All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was a test of friendship, and a couple of times, but it made us stronger, you know. It worked out good. It worked out great. No, nothing against my partner or anything, but I'd much rather go with a gorgeous woman than a hairy-looking beast like that.
Wonderful, man. Hammer and hatchet.
Hammer and hatchet.
Found those names.
Yeah, here's the matches. Okay.
We never fought, although I did nag him to start with.
When did you arrive? Oh, we got in an hour and a half ago.
Hi, you guys.
All right. Good to see you here.
Some memories there, Kate. This is probably where you pulled her up on the rocks when a bear was chasing you.
This is when you went to sleep, and I couldn't wake you out.
It must have been really something with 30,000 people milling around up on the whole waterway system and the trail.
Traveling that distance, that 600 miles by your own propulsion, your own means. It's amazing to think that they endured that, because we certainly, I think, all feel like we've endured, and we had it easy compared to them.
Campbell's tomato soup has always been a good source of warmth.
You're up.
Betcha didn't know. It was also a good source of vitamins. Campbell's tomato. More goodness than you knew.
Soon after man discovered clothing, man created laundry. And attempts were made to get clothes cleaner, fresher, brighter. Introducing the evolution of a cleaner clean. Sunlight now has an active oxygen formula that releases oxygen, loosens dirt, and cleans right down to the fibers. The active oxygen formula from Sunlight. Now, if only man could evolve the way laundry has.
If you're between 50 and 75, Norwich Union will insure you for life with no medical exam or health questions.
Even with my heart condition, I didn't need a medical to be insured.
And they didn't ask us any health questions.
Your guaranteed life insurance can cost as little as $20 a month. Depending on your age and the premium you choose, you could be covered for up to $25,000. And in case of a fatal accident, your benefit triples up to $75,000.
With the guaranteed life insurance plan, I'll have the affordable protection I need, and my premiums will never go up.
Call this number now for your free personal enrollment kit. You're under no obligation, and no salesperson will visit. If you're between 50 and 75, you're automatically approved with no medical exam.
Just call 1-800-263-9899. An operator is standing by to take your call now. That's 1-800-263-9899. Ask for operator 497.
Come closer. Take a different look at how you can use Life Network. Browse our website at lifenetwork.ca to design and download your own personalized schedule of Life Network programs. Now you'll always know when to watch your favorite shows. The site is full of facts you can use, like detailed program listings, information about the people on the shows, and there's even a few good recipes. Let lifenetwork.ca focus on what's important to you. Last one out, turn off the lights. Life Network, television you can surf. Life Network brings you a sweeping new series, Horse Tales. Travel the globe to explore the true stories of horse and rider. Watch as riders attempt to tame the wild Kaminawa horses of New Zealand. Prepare for one of the world's toughest horse races in the Czech Republic. Or come home for the RCMP musical ride. Discover what it takes to cement the extraordinary bond between horse and rider the world over. Horse Tales, Saturday at 8:30 Eastern on Life Network.
Well, I have a book that I started set 100 years ago. So my heroine, she's going to come over the Chilkoot Pass with a bunch of characters like the group that came over with us. And there's going to be somebody that'll flip and windy arm and be rescued. There's going to be a character like me struggling over the pass, and then some nice young man comes and takes my pack from me. Because it was so painful.
Yeah, the sunshine was a big highlight. Beautiful scenery was a highlight. Just the whole thing was just one highlight after the next. It was just, beautiful country. The Yukon Territory itself is a pretty magical place to be,
Hop on and take a carpet ride with Martha Stewart. She'll visit an expert for a lesson on care and restoration of fine oriental rugs on the next Martha Stewart Living. Next on Life Network.
There's gold in the Klondike.
Okay, John.
Okay, we'll just go up Gray Mountain. We'll just stick to the road on this hike. We won't bother going off on any of those trails this time.
Okay, sounds good to me.
John Small and John Firth are preparing for the trip of a lifetime. The two White Horse men will be following in the footsteps of their grandfather, Thomas Andrew Firth, a stampeder in the Klondike Gold Rush a century ago.
My grandfather had done the same trip. It's a recreation of the historical aspect of the race and the adventure of being out there. I think just being in this event makes one a winner. We're in shape. We'll finish, and we won't have any concern about that. But we're definitely not going to be. We're not in the shape that a competitive team would be in.
The year was 1897. The world was in a depression. Very few people had ever heard about the Klondike. But in time, the name would become infamous. The stampede was on. Thousands of people headed north with dreams of gold. One of those people was Dyea Firth. Unlike many of the stampeders who left Dawson when the gold began to run out, Firth would continue to make the Yukon his home. His descendants still live here. Howie Firth is the grandson of Dyea Firth.
What we do know is that Thomas Andrew Firth was the fourth of 8 children. He was born in a small town in Ontario called Meaford, which is on Georgian Bay, east of Owen Sound. His father was a Baptist minister. He had 8 children. He was the fourth. He did his early schooling in Meaford. We do know that he left town or left home at an early age, 13 years of age, and he traveled to the States, we believe, perhaps to Pennsylvania, where other relatives were. We think he continued his education and his schooling in the States, but it's pretty sketchy from then until he resurfaces again when he's 30 years of age in Seattle, where he was when the boatload of early miners showed up with gold in July of 1897.
Skagway, Alaska. It's here most of the stampeders arrived after sailing up the coast. Doctors, accountants, farmers, the unemployed. They came from every walk of life and every corner of the globe. They all had gold fever and dreams of getting rich.
He was a man that was very confident in what he did. And even though he wasn't very large in stature, I believe he was very large in heart and in courage, and he welcomed that type of an adventure.
But first, Dyea and the rest of the stampeders had to get to the gold fields, a journey of over 1,100 kilometers, more arduous and treacherous than any of them imagined. Some would not survive. Skagway is called the gateway to the Klondike. Thousands of people still flock here each summer. But for most of these people, this is where their Klondike adventure ends.
Go down?
To celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Gold Rush, 52-person teams from the Yukon and Alaska will be taking part in a reenactment of the Klondike Stampede, a race from Dyea to Dawson. Jeff Brady is one of the organizers.
It's not just any old marathon. You know, it's actually commemorating something. It's honoring people who came before.
After a final check of their equipment and some anxious moments, the canoes will be transported to Bennett Lake. Like the original stampeders, these people will begin their adventure at Dyea near Skagway. They'll have to hike for 53 kilometers over inhospitable terrain. Along the way, they'll climb the 1,100-meter-high Chilkoot Pass, then canoe over 800 kilometers down the Yukon River before arriving at the gold fields in Dawson. The journey is expected to take up to 2 weeks.
Now smile. There you go. Okay.
Some of these people are professional athletes who have been training for months for this race. Others are here just for the adventure. John Firth and John Small are the only people in the race who are descendants of the original stampeders. For them, the race is a chance to retrace the route their grandfather, T.A. Firth, took on his trip to the Klondike a century ago.
I think I identify with him lots now. He traveled, he broke away from his family ties and went across, probably America. Myself, I traveled a lot, 4 or 5 years around the world looking and trying various things and doing 100 jobs, eh? Just more like him, eh?
In his situation, it was a race for the gold, to see who was going to get to Dawson City first, to stake the best claims, to make money. Their whole future hinged on what they were doing. We don't have quite so much at stake.
It's early morning at the head of the Chilkoot Trail.
Hi, how you doing, sweetie?
Better follow, madam.
Oh, yeah! Good morning. Good morning. Isn't this a good day for a race? Welcome to Dyea, brother. Yeah.
During the gold rush, everyone entering the Yukon was required to bring with them a ton of provisions. Today, these modern-day stampeders are required to carry the mandatory gold pan, shovel, skillet, bags of flour, beans, nails, and a minimum 50-pound pack.
I live with that. 55.
As many of the original stampeders learned, the North can be unforgiving. Finishing this grueling race will require perseverance, teamwork, and a sense of adventure.
Remember, I want to hear you sing The Irish Eyes Are Smiling up there on the summit.
Or Danny Boy.
Or Danny Boy, of course. That's always a favorite.
I've been fascinated by the Yukon history. I've been fascinated. I've read Robert Service since I was a kid, and I've read about the Yukon River and the lakes. And there's something personal about this trip.
You see, we're the yin and the yang of body Nazis. That he counts body weight, I count calories.
I'm doing it to share an intense experience with a friend, close friend, 20 years. And I love doing wilderness adventures. Done a lot of Dyea competitions and Alaska Wilderness Classic, and I do expect to win.
What are we doing? I think you guys are kind of crazy, but I like you're kind of crazy.
As the start of the race approaches, the excitement begins to build. The moment of truth has arrived.
20 seconds.
If you're climbing any mountains, it better be mine.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go! 3, 2, 1.
Finally, it's the John's turn.
Familiar Mr. Firth's grandfather or his great-grandfather hiked the Chilkoot Trail in the winter of 97 and 98 100 years ago. 4, 3, 2, 1.
From Dyea, the race will wind upwards, through Pacific coastal rainforests, across frigid mountain streams, beautiful alpine meadows, and rugged mountains. The first stage of the race will end at Bennett Lake and the headwaters of the Yukon River. The racers will stop at Sheep Camp tonight. Tomorrow on the summit, they will reenact the most famous photo of the gold rush.
How's it going? Oh, I feel great. Glad we finally started.
Unlike the original stampeders, these hikers have modern high-tech gear should the elements turn against them. The Chilkoot Trail has been called the longest museum in the world, and as you travel along the trail, it's easy to see why. Walking along this trail gives you new respect for this land. Underestimating the hardship they would face, here many of the stampeders faltered. Their bones and spirits broken, they abandoned their dream and headed home. Those that did succeed had to make up to 100 trips to carry their ton of goods over the trail. The whispers of their ghosts can still be heard in these valleys.
What's your number?
43.
43. Are you both here together?
She's right there.
Right behind you?
Lady in green.
Okay, thank you.
The first stop, Sheep Camp, 20 kilometers into the race.
Thank you. Where's the beer?
Just a moment.
Most teams take 6 to 8 hours to get here. The fastest team arrives in just 2.5 hours after running almost all the way from Dyea.
No food at your campsites tonight. Be sure to store all your food on the bare poles. If you don't want to use this, there's one.
Here the racers will relax, try to take a step back in time, get to know one another.
Your name again?
Fred.
Joe.
Good to meet you, Joe.
Yeah.
Oh, I know Mark. You know Mark.
Well, it's actually much more competitive than I think most of us imagined. There's some real hardcore outdoors people here, and I think because of that, the whole group is uplifted. I mean, we're actually performing a lot higher level of competition than I ever expected.
After a meal, tonight is a chance for the Johns to reflect on what their grandfather must have endured in his quest for a better life.
Those guys back in 1898, my grandfather made 50 or 100 trips like this, all the way from Dyea up to Sheep Camp, and then from Sheep Camp up to the summit. And you know, I was struggling up some of these hills with one 50-pound pack. It's no wonder you got to have the respect for those guys back then. They must have been in incredible physical shape by the time they finished moving their gear up, because they had to take a full ton up there.
They need a good night's sleep. Tomorrow the racers will climb the scales to the summit of Chilkoot Pass.
Get through the scales in the 5 hours, and then it's all the way to Bennett, and that's a long ways. A long ways on freeze-dried food.
Morning breaks. Many of the racers are anxious to get underway. At 63, Yvonne Harris is the oldest person competing.
Yes, I actually thought this was going to be really, really torturous, and it was. But I have a humongous blister on my foot, and I find that pack too much. It's tough. It's going to be tough today.
Like the original Stampeders, out here in the wilderness, the hikers have to rely on their own ingenuity in order to succeed.
John, what are you doing?
Oh no.
Repairing V-boots.
Look, it looks like it's coming apart, eh?
Hey, well, don't pull it. Don't help it.
Yeah, I'll help you.
These racers are hiking in summer. Still, the trail can be deceiving. Most of the original Stampeders had the cold and snow to contend with. The Stampeders struggled with their heavy loads, some stumbling under their burden. Avalanches were their greatest fear. Here on April the 3rd, 1898, 70 men lost their lives. To ease the journey, in Seattle, T.A. Firth teamed up with some partners who pooled their resources. He also had another advantage.
Physically, he wasn't a very big man. He was only 5'2" or 5'3". He was very stocky, and this is one thing that he did tell my father, was that he found that when they were doing the Chilkoot, that it was the short, wirier and stocky men that were able to climb the Chilkoot with the heavier loads and sustain it. The tall men, the guys over 6 foot and 230 pounds or so, found it very difficult. And in proportion, he thought that it was the smaller, wirier people were the ones that were more successful. As you know, the native packers who did an awful lot of packing of the goods over were of the short, stocky build and provided, you know, the most amount of supplies packed over the Chilkoot.
Immortalized by the camera. It's here at the scales that the most famous photos of the Klondike Gold Rush were taken.
Yo, Klondike!
A century later, these modern-day stampeders pause at the scales to reenact that most famous photo. It's like stepping back in time.
You're going back to our homeland.
Yes, we're going home.
The hike up to the summit is no less grueling, but this time they only have to make the climb once. Their legs burn as they stumble to the top. Waiting to greet them, the law of the Yukon. During the original gold rush, the Northwest Mounted Police were called upon to maintain law and order. Today it's the RCMP. Like the original stampeders, here their supplies will be checked too.
How you doing? Nice to meet you. My name's Adam.
As the racers cross the international border, they do so under the watchful eye of the customs officer.
Flour, 5 pounds of fruit. Oops. Okay, going K and the sugar is right there. Skillet, hello.
Here they will have a few minutes to catch their breath and reflect.
Oh, that was a tough grunt. That's a steep climb. Well, I did feel nostalgic, but I thought it was relief because he had to move a ton of supplies over that thing in a lineup like that, which means he probably made anywhere between 20 to 40 trips, and I only had to come up once. That was relief.
The first racers to arrive at the summit were Adam Verrier and Todd Boonstra.
I'll try and see you in car cross.
They'll also be the first to leave. It's another 35 kilometers to Lake Bennett. The trip over the summit and to the lake normally takes 2 days. The serious racers will do the trip in 8 to 12 hours. Here is where the people who want to win will separate themselves from those who are in this just for the adventure. After reaching the summit, the hike is mostly downhill alongside a series of small lakes. When they reach the shores of Lake Bennett, the racers will trade in their hiking boots for a canoe and begin the next stage of the race, the long paddle to Dawson. Bennett is a ghost town now, but a century ago, it was booming.
Again, they traveled together, they pulled the resources, got over to Bennett, and I believe it was later on in 97, the winter, and they decided to winter there, as opposed to taking the chance of going down the frozen lake system, and so they stayed and built their boat and waited for the breakup in spring of 1898.
It is nightfall when most of the racers reach Lake Bennett.
Put your gear on the outside here, and then rest and change clothes.
Exhausted, some grab a few hours of sleep. But others, determined to claim the prize, put their canoes right into the water. For now, the lake is calm. But the boats of many a stampeder were swamped by winds that appeared out of nowhere. Keenly aware of the danger, most of the racers are trying to get to Carcross before the winds pick up.
The old bowman will get nervous.
When they leave Bennett, the two Johns are in 30th place. Like their grandfather before them, unknown dangers await them. Along the way, they'll have to fight wind, rain, hunger, and fatigue. 100 years later, it's still a race to the Klondike.
Please join us.
Stream is Whitehorse. Here there is a mandatory 12-hour stopover. The first team to arrive in Whitehorse is John McConaughey and Phil Moritz of Juneau, Alaska.
Oh, yeah!
It's noon on the third day. They've had no sleep since the first night of the race.
Let's see if we can walk. Oh, I don't know about this. Oh.
What a paddle, what a paddle.
Interesting. Oh, boy. I can't believe you guys.
It's definitely not easy. When the Stampeders came through, it wasn't easy either. So it was, the reenactment was what it was all about.
They may be in first place now, but in less than 2 days they'll be forced to drop out of the race because of illness. There's only a few hours separating the top teams. The top Yukon team is in 4th place. The original Stampeders were also in a race to get to Dawson. Those that got there first hoped to stake the richest claims. But unlike the other Stampeders, T.A. Firth and his partners took their time. They realized that by now, the best claims were gone.
Well, this is something that's always intrigued me, that, he was in Bennett. They had spent the winter, built their boat. They pooled their resources, and they waited for the ice to break along with everybody else, and away they went, which probably would have been the end of June sometime. He didn't arrive, or they didn't arrive into Dawson City until September the 1st of 1898, which was his 31st birthday. The journey shouldn't take that long. Dad told me that what they did was they mined all the way down the Yukon River. They would mine for what they call flour gold on the sandbars, and at the tributaries of all the creeks and rivers that joined in.
Just upstream from Whitehorse were 2 of the most challenging obstacles the Stampeders had to overcome: Miles Canyon and the Whitehorse Rapids. Here the dreams of many a Stampeder were swallowed up by the raging water.
Hi, Mom.
Today the river's fury has been tamed by a hydro dam. The water level is over 10 feet higher than it was during the gold rush. Miles Canyon and the Whitehorse Rapids no longer pose a threat to those that pass this way.
Here they come. That's right.
On the shore at Whitehorse, anxiously awaiting their arrival, are the families of John Firth and John Small.
All right. We've had probably 10 teams in the last 2 hours.
Oh, really? Eh?
Oh.
Whitehorse Campground, Robert Service Campground is hopping tonight.
How many teams in?
I believe 32.
The mandatory 12-hour stopover gives everyone a chance to grab some badly needed rest before the teams push off again. The Yukon is one of North America's great rivers, winding its way almost 2,000 kilometers across the Yukon and Alaska before spilling into the Bering Sea. Rugged and unforgiving, this land is also beautiful. Many of the original Stampeders were inspired by this beauty. Just a few kilometers downriver from Whitehorse is Lake LaBarge, the last lake the racers will have to cross. This place was made famous by Robert Service in his poem, The Cremation of Sam McGee.
There are strange things done in the midnight sun by the men who moil for gold. The Arctic trails have their secret tales that would make your blood run cold. The northern lights have seen queer sights, but the queerest they ever did see was that night on the marge of Lake LaBarge, I cremated Sam McGee. Now, Sam McGee was from Tennessee, where the cotton...
Inspired by the beauty of this land, traveling along the Yukon River brought out the romantic side of T.A. Firth.
Once he came to the north, even though he strived to find gold, he also loved the country as soon as he saw it. And I always like to say that the gold he found were in the sunsets and the sunrises. He was quite a romantic in his own right. He had in print poetry, and very romantic poetry, and he also had a song composed, patented, and sheet music made for a song that he had composed.
Sweet rosebud, fragrant flower of love, the dearest bud in bloom, whose perfumed leafy heart of flower casts out love's doubt and gloom. I've longed to know.
Lake LaBarge is 50 kilometers long. Most of the racers continue their paddling throughout the night. They're trying to take advantage of the fine, calm weather.
The evening when the sun goes down, traditionally the wind kind of dies out. So that's what we do. Sleep in a bit in the day and then get up in the later evening and start paddling, basically. And take 1 or 2 breaks through the night. And it's worked out really good, as you can see. It's 3 or 4 in the morning right now, and it's dead calm, and we're making headway.
For over half a century, the primary means of transportation between Whitehorse and Dawson was by paddle wheeler. The paddle wheelers are gone now, replaced by the Klondike Highway. But the ice and the shifting sandbars of the Yukon River claimed more than a few of the big boats. From Lake LaBarge, it's another 50 kilometers downriver to the junction of the Yukon and Teslin rivers. This is the final resting place of the paddle wheeler Evelyn. Here, some of the competitors had to take time out to fight a brush fire 20 meters from the boat.
Boy, we got flames.
The fire was started by lightning. A fragile piece of Yukon history is saved. At the village of Big Salmon, the paddle wheelers used to stop to take on more wood for their boilers. Today, most of the visitors are tourists here to experience Yukon history. Michael Yee is from Skagway. Like the original Stampeders, he built his own canoe for this race. After paddling for days non-stop, boredom sets in.
Yeah, we figured by strokes per minute and the amount of hours we spend on the water, we both have in approximately 40,000 strokes per day and lifting about 20 tons of paddle per day. And these are these light carbon fiber paddles. I can't imagine what some of the people carrying or using the wood paddles are lifting.
His partner is Kate Moylan from Whitehorse. Fatigue and lack of sleep causes her mind to play tricks.
Last night I dreamt about this black bear chasing us in the water. Or I didn't dream about it. I looked over and I thought I saw a black bear chasing us. I'm sure it wasn't really happening, but those are the kinds of things that you start hallucinating about.
Canoes with milkshakes, big milkshakes, the size of people, lined up in the canoe. It was hot. It was very hot, sweltering. We had been paddling a long time, and it could have been maybe a dream because, you know, we were starting to nod off as we paddle, but there it was, a canoe with milkshakes.
The last major obstacle, Five Finger Rapids, is just downriver from Carmacks. By now, 6 teams have dropped out of the race. If the remaining competitors don't take the right line through the rapids, they could splinter their canoe into tiny pieces. John Small and John Firth make it safely through. They have nearly 100 kilometers to go before reaching their next stop, Fort Selkirk. Fort Selkirk is a former Hudson's Bay trading post, which was built in 1848. It's also an historic First Nations settlement. Much of the fort has been reconstructed to look as it would have a century ago. The racers are wet and exhausted. They still have about 300 kilometers to go before they reach Dawson City. Amazingly, the fastest teams have already arrived in Dawson. Organizers thought it would take them a week.
Okay, the steaks.
Yeah, nice to see you. First one's here.
See ya.
Go over there to Jeff Brady. Okay.
But Jim Loken and Art Ward have made the trip in just under 4 days and 9 hours. They will claim first prize, $5,000 in Klondike gold.
It was really good.
It was good to be done paddling.
Yeah, we paddled a lot and slept none.
Meanwhile, back on the river, John Firth and John Small are nearing the end of their Klondike adventure.
I think we're about 96 miles away from Dawson, so we're going to have a little rest here. 94. We're 94 miles from Dawson. So we're going to have a 2 or 3 hour power snooze, relax here. So about 1:30, 2 o'clock, we'll get going and push on for Dawson.
You know, you're close enough to the end that it's a bit of excitement knowing that the end is coming. And yet at the same time, you're so tired, you just don't want to get back into that canoe. It's quite a conflict. But, you know, we'll get to Dawson and we'll get this ordeal over with.
T.A. Firth arrived in Dawson on the 1st of September, 1898, his 31st birthday. He toiled in the gold fields for 2 years, hoping to strike it rich. But he soon realized that the real money to be made was in mining the miners themselves.
The miners that had no education came to him and asked them to write letters home to their loved ones, asked them to write wills, to do notary work. And he clued in right away when he saw that it was the shopkeepers and the saloon keepers and the hotel keepers and the people that provided the picks and shovels. They were the ones that were making the sustained money up there. And so, as my father used to say, that he traded in his pick for his pen and proceeded to make his fortune in other ways, and that is by the business acumen.
Eventually, he started his own business, T.A. Firth Insurance. It's still owned by his family. He left Dawson for a short time to marry his childhood sweetheart, Dyea. They returned to Dawson, where they built a home and raised a family. 99 years after T.A. first came to the Klondike, his grandsons arrive in Dawson.
Nature's taking one last kick at us with this headwind.
The journey of nearly 900 kilometers has taken them 8 days, 6 hours, 3 minutes, and 22 seconds.
I'm in 2:58:23.
They finish in 32nd place. But it's an experience they'll never forget. While the race may be over, their journey is not complete.
So you and Sharon came up and fixed this up a couple of years ago?
Yeah, about 4 years ago, eh? That's what Grandma wanted done.
Hmm.
So we got some of these white rocks and put it on there and took all the bushes away and gave her a paint job, eh? Lots of forgotten stories here, eh?
Well, it's too bad Delia was never buried here beside him. She died in Vancouver, and about 6 months after he died, and that's where they buried her.
Mm-hmm. So, John, this is it, eh? If it wasn't for him coming up here,
we wouldn't be here.
We wouldn't be here.
A century later, Thomas Andrew Firth's spirit of adventure lives on. In Dawson City, I'm Ken McGilvery.